Ezt nem hiszem el. Ha gyors mentést nyomok, akkor is ledobja. Tehát, hogy... Ez hülyeség. Tehát... mindegy. Én nem értem.
The Bristlebacks threaten us all. Oh, drop the act. We all know it was the Carja who let the Bristlebacks into the valley.
Tényleg ezek ilyen miniküldetéseket mutatott.
You mean the land that honest Osram laborers work tirelessly with no say in its governance? The land that should you sign the decree? Oh, you and that damn.
Nagyon komolyan meg van csinálva a gesztikulációval, hogy ott mutogat a csávó, hogy ott ül. Jól néz ki, jól mutat.
What do you want, Daunt? Some kind of payment?
My dear magistrate, you think I can be bought? If you want that whistle blown, all you have to do is have your soldiers remove the Bristlebacks and sign the concession decree.
Hello, yeah.
Face it. What other choice do you have?
Hi.
Savior, what auspicious timing. Might we discuss a matter of importance to the Sundom?
We might. Later.
Very well. I shall be waiting.
So, the Savior herself. Walloper of Derval, gutter of Hughes.
Maybe.
I've heard many tales of your beauty and heroics, my fierce lady warrior. Olfant freeholder, at your service.
Szabad birtokos.
So, what could have dragged you away from the fine silks and wine of Meridian to this smudge of a settlement? Your saviorly attention must be needed elsewhere.
I'm here for the embassy and...
The embassy? Why, by the forge. Ah. Greater gears for greater matters. Guess that means you'll be moving on.
Once I've dealt with any problems around here that need my saviorly attention.
Ah, the Bristlebacks, of course. Got to get rid of them if you want that embassy to take place. Well, best get to it, hey? And off you go.
Not so fast. You ordered the work stoppage?
Indeed I did. We're laborers, not soldiers. Until the Carja clean up their mess and give us the fair deal we deserve, I'm not risking Osram lives.
Fair deal? You mean your concession decree?
It's not my decree. It's on behalf of all the good Osram laborers of this land who do all the backbreaking work, while only the Carja reap the rewards. All we're asking for is the ability to share in this prosperity for a land worked by the people, for the people.
Right. And just how much would be your share?
Only an amount appropriate to my contributions to this community, of course.
If Chainscrape is on Carja land, shouldn't a Carja be in charge? Who appointed you?
The sensibilities of good Osram folk, of course. You think a Carja can head this whole venture? Ah! The magistrate can barely make the trek from Barren Light without losing a few screws.
So you have no real authority then? People only follow you because you say so. Loudly.
Anyone who has followers has authority. I've been with Chainscrape from the beginning. I mean, I'm practically its founder, and its honest folk know I'm indispensable to its success.
You don't seem to have a high opinion of the magistrate?
Well, I refuse to play nice to some fancy-robed parchment pusher when my fellow laborers are being bullied, intimidated, and taken advantage of.
How noble of you.
Noble? Ha! Born with a hammer in hand, I was. Nobody handed me anything or dropped opportunity into my lap. Everything I've achieved, I've done on my own.
And where is this hammer now?
The, burden of leadership forced me to set it aside. The Carja risk nothing, while demanding that good Osram gamble with their lives out there. Someone had to step up and say no more.
Na jó van.
You said you founded Chainscrape. Somehow I doubt that.
Practically founded, I said. I alone saw its potential when it was just a smattering of tents in barren light shadow. I invested in the mine, convinced some friends back home to do the same, and here we are. You could say Chainscrape is what it is thanks to me.
Oh, so you're not just standing around and profiting off everyone else?
Not at all. Sure, I make a little return on my investment here and there, but my main priority, as it was from the beginning, is to look after the well-being of these honest, working Osram.
De egy képmutató fasz vagy.
Where's the whistle?
Right in town, but with the threat out there, I'm not endangering innocent Osram lives.
I'm going to clear out the Bristlebacks. And when I'm done, this valley is going to get moving.
If that's what it takes. Until then, I'll keep looking after the safety of these good folk.
Just be ready to blow the whistle.
Ja.
Better see what that Carja magistrate wanted. I bet he's in the tavern.
Kocsma, hat lesz a Petra is. Ugye? Hol van? Ez az kocsma? Ez aztán a térkép. Tábortűz, ismeretlen. Az mi? Ez épületen kívül vannak. Jó van. Tú szakács vagy.
Hey, Mildef. I took some of your stew last time I went into the wilds. Kept me going for a week. Felt like I could have put a strider in a sleeper hold.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Sounds like you're serving up some impressive provisions here.
Not again. You can have the discount too, but you'll have to come back later.
I think you have me confused with someone else.
Owen didn't send you?
No.
Oh, my apologies. It's just that his minions won't stop pestering me. Now I've even worn out my special grill. Since I'm in the midst of a crisis, perhaps you could skip to what it is you wanted?
Some of your food?
Of course.
Are Ulvin's people causing you problems?
Oh, yeah. They constantly demand my best, but the equipment I need to make my signature dishes isn't built for batch cooking. And don't get me started on the Ulvin discount they feel so entitled to.
And if you refuse?
I make meals.
No
trouble.
How did you end up in Chainscrape?
Heard about a new and upcoming town at the edge of the frontier. Where there's a town, there's a tavern. I was in need of work. So I got myself out here and started cooking. Some of these people had never tasted proper boars and berries stew before. Anyway, next thing I knew, people kept coming back. Guess they liked my food. Or the ale.
Your last customer mentioned your cooking really kept him going out in the wild. Where I'm headed, I could use some of that.
I would be happy to oblige, especially since you have the decency to ask pleasantly.
But
my special groove griddle is no more. Without it, I can't cook any of my signature dishes. I hate to think what'll happen when I'm forced to refuse Ulvin or his goons. Even if I already had the right ingredients, there's nothing I can do. Unless you can source me a temporary replacement?
What do you need?
For the ingredients. A few pieces of decent wild meat, and I'd say a big handful of bitter leaf stems. That'll do. As for the griddle, a corrugated metal panel might suffice until I can have a new one forged. You'd likely find one in the scrounger pile if you follow the river to the northeast. Don't worry, I'll clean it first. You'll have no issue finding boars and bitter leaf on your way. Assuming you're as much a hunter-gatherer as your clothing suggests.
Thanks, Mildef. I'll keep an eye out.
So that's what gratitude sounds like.
Don't let anyone push you around, okay?
If you say so.
Szóval kell 5 vadhús, 3 űrmöt, ami sziklás terepen nő. Na, ez legalább segített. 5 szint kell hozzá, én meg vagyok 3-as. Akkor jó. Nézzük, mit akarok. Az idehányt, jól láttam. Azt a... A kiskocsába eltévedek, az körülakó.
Savior, thank you for taking the time, and my condolences that you had to endure Ulvant's bloviating.
I've dealt with worse. It sounds like he's really trying to put you over the barrel.
The idea that the Karja purposely let Bristlebacks into the Daunt, it's completely absurd. But the louder and longer he says it, the more support he'll get for his damned concession decree.
How did the Bristlebacks get into the Daunt?
No one knows for sure. The first report of them came from west of the quarry. But unless they have wings I don't know about, I don't see how they could have come over the mountains.
No other way in.
The only way I know about is barren light. Look, if you can get to the bottom of this, I can offer a considerable bounty in return.
Úgy is megcsinálom.
Help me shut Ulvant up.
Ulvant.
How did
Annak az emberi
you
szórakozik
get
a
stuck in
szakáccsal, az
I
pedig nem...
asked for the posting,
nem
believe it or
komálom.
not. Overseeing the entire valley on behalf of the Sun King? It was an honor. Is an honor, I mean.
But your job would be a lot easier without someone like Ulvand blasting hot air all the time?
Ulvant's not going anywhere. He's been around longer than I have. Even fancies himself the founder of Chainscrape.
Persze annyit hajtogat, hogy az emberek
I'll
elhitték.
find a way to live with him. I have to.
What is this concession decree that Ulvand wants?
He wants the Sundom to designate portions of the Daunt as Oseram holdings. Only the portions, mind you, that produce any value.
Let me guess. Because he stands to profit somehow?
Exactly. With the Daunt under Oseram law, he could secure more investment for their numerous ventures.
He can't get those investments without the concession?
No. Not while there's a chance the Sundom could revoke their access. Hence, why the concession is so important to him. And why blaming the Karja for the Bristlebacks, no matter how absurd, works in his favor.
How does blaming the Karja for the Bristlebacks help Ulvand get his concession?
Look around. This may be the Sundom, but Chainscrape is all gears and rust and bad ale. Claiming that the Karja loosed the Bristlebacks in order to intimidate Oseram laborers into obedience... Well, let's just say no one here has forgotten the atrocities of the mad Sun King. And with the Bristlebacks bringing work in the valley to a halt, Ulvant has plenty of time to pick at barely healed wounds.
And if the Oseram refuse to work, unless the concession is signed, you won't have a choice.
Correct.
Na, azt hiszem nincsen.
The reconstruction of
Remnek a
barren light
Petrával kell
must
dumálni, és
continue.
akkor vége van itt a faluban
You said the
lévő
Bristlebacks were first
pofázásnak.
spotted west of the quarry?
Yes,
És
according to
akkor utána
one terrified laborer,
beindul
said
ugye
the ground trembled
maga
before
játék.
they came charging down the
Ugye az, hogy
hillside. He took off and ran all the way here.
Ugye ez az első pont a tréningek után, ahol
Maybe
az
Olin will
elindult
stop blaming
történettel.
the Karja for every problem under the sun, and maybe then he'll actually focus on rebuilding Barren Light instead.
De úgyis végén úgyis az lesz, hogy kiderül, hogy ez volt benne mindenben, azt ki kell nyírnom. Legalábbis remélem. Hol vagy?
Hey, Ray. Change your mind about that
Mi ez a
fancy
képruhám?
name straight. Come for that beer after all, eh? Here, sit down.
Az valami
Get a
játék lesz,
pint
ez
in
a
her
képruhám?
hand. Wasn't expecting you to swing by.
Since when do I do what's expected?
There's that spark. Fire and spit.
Fire and spit.
That's a blast from the bellows. Won't fix the forge, but at least I can forget about my troubles for a while.
Like what?
Take your pick. We got bodies to bury from the Bristlebacks, the work stoppage, Olvin grating the gears about his concession decree. Hey! Weapons off the table! Ah, don't listen to me. Nothing a cold brew and knocking some heads together can't fix eventually.
So the
Jó van,
Bristlebacks
ennyi
and the
információ
Daunt.
basszus. Hányal ide?
Where did they come from?
That's the thing. No one rightly knows. They just showed up one day, rampaging around the valley
Why
like
would
they
I hide?
exploded out of a forge. Lost some good people. But I heard talk of some vanguards trying to take them down.
Did they come through here?
Stopped by briefly for supplies. Ulvind was none too pleased. Won't be able to crank it to his advantage once the Bristlebacks are gone.
But how could Bristlebacks and the Daunt help Ulvind?
2 words. Concession decree. Since no one knows where the Bristlebacks came from, Ulvind has taken to blaming the Karja for him. He's hoping to dig up enough old resentments to get a strike going until the
that's what I
concession's
get, Diana.
signed. This is just his latest attempt. He's been trying to rile up the workers since the day he rolled into town.
And people actually believe him?
Lots of folks suffered at the hands of the Mad King during the Red Raids. Give him half a reason, they'll blame the Karja for anything.
Damn Karja slavers.
I thought you'd be back in Freeheap.
Well, after the big battle at Meridian, I went back, but realized it was running smooth. Didn't need me. Heard about the rebuilding out at Barren Light. Figured they could use another hammer. Been scraping by ever since.
You could always leave.
And go back east? Nah. I ain't one to leave a lit forge. Besides, someone's gotta be a squeaky wheel for the workers around here.
So about Ulvind.
Around here, everything's about Ulvind.
How'd he end up in charge?
He got here early, like a squirrel smelling a fat nut. He knew rebuilding Barren Light would need stone and timber. So he jangled purses all over Mainspring, getting investors to front claims on anything in the Daunt that might be worth a damn. Thing is, all the bankers back home know that this is Karja land, and the Sun King can revoke those claims at any time. That's why he's desperate for the magistrate to sign off on a concession decree.
This concession decree, what is it exactly? And
Jó van
how would
már.
it help Ulvind?
It's pig diddle, that's what.
A writ that would put all Osram claims in the Daunt under Osram law, even though they're on Karja land. It would mean that any existing ore, stone, and timber claims couldn't be revoked by the Karja. No more risk, no more hesitation for investors back in the claim to pour in the shards and expand their business. And since Ulvind has a stake in all those claims, it would make him richer than a scrapper in a junk heap. Not to mention Chainscrape would become an Osram municipality, so he could buy enough votes to call himself an elderman. He's a sly old badger, I'll give him that. Figures if he keeps up the pressure, eventually the magistrate will sign.
Na,
Well,
lépjünk
I have to be going.
olajra.
Thanks for the drink, Petra. I'm glad I stopped by.
Anytime,
most-
Flamehair.
Megnézem ezt a rohamot.
Even the
Ez
safer
bizonyám.
Meridian needs always a challenge. Play some strike. Come to revel in some strike, sister? Let me set the board.
I was just passing by.
First timer, huh? Don't worry about it. I'll go easy on you. You got any
Yes,
pieces?
me too.
No.
Go
Well,
on.
aren't you in luck then? I got an extra set. A Tanakh original straight out of the Forbidden West. Sit. I'll run you through it in a hot spark. I'll give you something special if you win it on my boards, too.
Hát erre kíváncsi leszek, az milyen mini játék lesz. Kezdő lecke. Állapot nincs teljesítve az NFA készletek 2 valami. Ja, aha. Jó van, kezdjük. Üregásó. Közelharci típus. 2 valami, meg 1, meg az életerőt, azt megismerem. Gondolom utána azok meg a mozgás lenne. Célzás meg támadás? Vagy közelharci távolsági sebzés?
All right, let's start off simple. The Tanakh like to say that Machine Strike is a game of pure strategy. We each get a set of pieces. Each piece represents a kind of machine, and each machine is worth a different number of victory points. And to win the game, you'll need to gain 7 victory points by destroying the opponent's machines. It can be tricky remembering the details of every machine, so we use these notes to keep track of them. You see that number on the top right corner?
Uh-huh.
That there is how many victory points you'll get for destroying that machine.
Értem.
Notes also tell you how far a piece can move,
Már mondtam, hogy az a mozgás.
how powerful their attacks are, the distance they can strike from, and of course, their health. Okay, that's enough for now. Let's just play. I'll explain the rest as we go. I own the board, so I get to choose who goes first. Since this is your first time, I'll let you go. Usually you get to choose which pieces to set on the board, but this will do for now. Pick up that machine piece to your right, and move it forward. And remember, each machine can only move a certain distance. Take a look at your notes if you need a reminder.
Ha kettőt az lépsz meg is fogsz nekem
Just
tudni
need
ütni.
to, easy enough, huh? Now, you get to move 2 machines each round, so go ahead and pick a second machine.
Aha, szóval akkor megint kettőt választhatok ki.
Perfect. There's not much else to do for now, so just end your turn.
Körbefejezése.
We're forging onwards. Let me move my pieces here. And we're back to you.
Azt
This
hittem
time,
előre
why
lépés
don't you try
megtámad.
attacking one of my pieces? Try with that machine on your right first. Now move the piece. When performing an attack, you'll be testing your machine's combat power against the opponent's. This board only has grassland terrain, which has no effect on a machine's combat power. And your current machine has 2 points of attack power. So in total, your machine's combat power equals 2 points. Since my machine isn't the one attacking, it has 0 points of attack power. And just like your machine, it's not affected by grassland terrain. So right now, the difference in combat power between the 2 machines is 2 points. This means your machine can do 2 points of damage to my machine.
Jó, felfogtam.
Did you get all that?
Igen, mehetek végre.
Knew you were a smart one. Finish up by attacking my machine. Not pulling any punches, huh? Now grab that second machine if... See how your machine can't move close enough to attack mine? You can make your machine sprint. That lets it move 1 space further. Try it. Downside to sprinting is that your machine can no longer attack.
Jó,
Now, some players like to
felfogtam.
take a risk and overcharge their machine in cases like this. Overcharging lets you attack after a sprint, but it will damage your machine's health by 2 points. So use at your own discretion. Let's try doing that now so you can see what I mean.
Jó van. Tehát így igazából akkor mind a ketten sírunk.
That's about it for your turn then.
És a következő körben megtámad és meg is hal.
Now, I'll let you in on a neat trick. That machine of yours, the one closest to me, grab a hold of it. Same as in the wilds. Machines have both armored points and weak points. You can see them marked on the pieces. Blue shows where their armor is thickest. Hit them there, and you'll do some damage, but not a lot. Now, red shows the machine's weak points. Hit those, and you'll deal a mighty blow. Here, let me show you. Rotate that piece so your machine faces mine.
Jaj, még forgathatok is.
Now let that machine have it. Off the board she goes, and there's your first victory points. You don't have 7 of them yet, so let's keep going. Your machine attacked mine, but hasn't moved yet. Go ahead and move downwards towards my remaining... You're gonna have to move that machine downwards if you want to see... You've already attacked a machine and moved your piece. But if you overcharge your machine, you can attack a second time. By the look of your machine's health, you'd be sacrificing your piece to defeat mine. But sometimes, that can be a good thing. Overcharge your machine to attack mine a second time, and I'll... Ain't that a thrill? Now, because your machine was knocked out at the same time as mine, we both get the victory points our machines are worth. Good news is, since you're the one attacking, you're gonna receive your victory points before I do. Which means you can reach the coveted 7 victory points first. That's why sometimes losing a piece can be the best way to end a game in your favor. Now, you'll notice you didn't get quite up to 7 victory points this time, but you did destroy all my pieces. That means you're the winner! That wasn't so hard, was it? Just remember to always check for the best terrain to attack from. You'd be surprised the advantage you can gain over an opponent like that.
No, ilyen szájbarágos.
I'll try and remember that.
Oh, before I forget. These are all my spare pieces. I want the Savior of Meridian to have them. It's a small set to be sure, but it should be enough to get you in on any strike games you find out there. You might even fancy looking out for them strike carvers. They've got all kinds of unique pieces that can turn a game in your favor, though they'll need the right materials to
Komolyan mondom, úgy érzem magam, amikor Gwenteznek
kellett.
kellett. Ott is szarrevertem mindenkit.
Night of machine hunting or brew hopping. No need to thank me. Always a pleasure to help out new strike players. Now, if you feel like playing a real game, I've got plenty of other... I could even teach you a few more tricks if you're up.
Thanks.
Na. Jó van, nézzük akkor a következőt.
I knew I'd make a strike player out of you yet. How about this time I tell you how to use a board's terrain to your advantage? This one's got all the different terrains you can encounter in a game of strike. Knowing when and how to use them can mean the difference between victory and defeat. Terrain mainly affects your machine's combat power. As you know, when fighting an opponent's machine, you compare its combat power to yours. The higher your machine's combat power, the more damage you can do. So finding the right terrain is an essential strategy for overpowering your opponent. Here, I'll show you. Grab that piece to your left and move to attack my machines. Now let's take a look at your machine's combat power. Combat power is the sum of a machine's attack power and the value of the terrain it's standing on. Since your machine is attacking, it's using its 2 points of attack power. It's also standing on, add those together, and your machine, my machine is standing on grassland terrain. It's also not attacking, which means so my combat power, this means your machine can, go ahead and test it. There you go. Now, choosing the right terrain doesn't just improve your offense. It can also help defend you. Grab your other piece and place it in front of my... Since your machine is attacking, it's using its 2 points of attack power. It's standing on grassland terrain. This means your machine... My machine can't use their attack powers since they're... But they have the higher... They're standing on forest terrain, which... This means my combat power adds up to 1 point. Now, the front of my... This means that the spot you're about to attack has armor protecting it. Which means my machine... gets an extra point, giving it a total of... If we compare the combat power of both machines, you'll see that you won't be able to do any damage. Whenever you're unable to top an opponent, you can still choose to attack and break their machine's defenses instead. Go ahead, try it out and see what happens.
Yeah.
See? When you break a machine's defenses, you can knock it backwards. Sure, both our machines will receive 1 point of damage. But knocking my machine off that terrain makes it more vulnerable to attacks. Not only that, if my machine had been blocked from moving backwards, it would have received an extra point of damage. And if my machine had been blocked by another one of my pieces, that machine would have received damage as well. That's why breaking a machine's defenses is a great way to deal damage to several pieces at once. Useful, right? Okay, now go ahead and end your turn. There's still one more thing. All right, as we've seen, the higher the terrain, the more it'll add to your machine's combat power. However, there are 2 other terrains that work a little differently. This is what we call a chasm. Only flying machines can be placed on those. But it'll take away 2 combat points if you do, so be wary. This is marsh terrain. Landing on it will take away 1 combat power point from... It'll also keep your machine from moving for the rest. Here, let me show you. Grab that machine on... See? All you can do now is wait for your next turn to move again. Or you can overcharge your machine. You can still attack any nearby enemies, so you're not... Well, I think that promise it'll all come in handy next...
Király. Most legalább rövidebb kör volt. Mi van izét, szarvasot, meg kecskét? Öklelő, meg kérőt. Ezek jó, hogy az 2-3 tud menni. Ja. Megcsinálom, és akkor végeztünk ezzel a társasjátékkal.
In a normal game, you get to choose which machines you place on the board. Each one is worth a certain number of setup points, and you can spend up to 10 assembling your army. Knowing what each machine brings to the game and building an army that matches your strategy is the key to becoming a machine. When assembling your army, there are a few things to keep. First and foremost, you can never have more than 4 of the same machine. With that in mind, most players would choose machines based on how far they can move or how much attack power. But a real strike player will be looking at a machine's type. Let's take a quick look, shall we? Pick up that machine on your left.
Egy pillanat is folytatom.
All right, let's talk about the different ways in which a machine attacks its opponents. In other words, its machine type. If you look at your notes, you'll see this machine here. You can also... A melee type machine attacks the first enemy within range, and no one else. We've seen this plenty of times, so just move that piece forward so I can show you. Great, now grab your other machine. Looks like we've got ourselves a gunner-type machine here. This means they'll only hit the farthest enemy in their... Let's move that... Let's go... This is a ram-type machine. Attack an enemy with it like this.
Hát valaki. Aha, itt előttük is értem.
See, now my machine has taken over your machine spot on the... This is a great way to take the edge from your opponent if they have that. Looks like we have one more piece to look at. Now this is a beauty of a piece. A dash-type machine. When it attacks, it'll move to the end of its... and damage every machine in its path, including your own.
Wow.
So make sure you take a good look at the board before you... You should also make sure it's able to finish its... Otherwise, you won't be able to attack at all. Here, I'll show you. Look, it even rotated your piece. A nifty little piece you'll definitely want in your set. If you look at your notes, you'll notice this particular machine has one of the skills I mentioned before. There's quite a few of those, and we haven't even... But I'm pretty sure you've got more important things to do, so it's got all the tips and tricks we talked about. I think that about does it for now, so if you want to play a...
Értem. Jó. Akkor innen fogom folytatni. Majd.
Come back anytime, Red.
Szerintem ezt a további rohamozós játékot, hogy megtanuljam, ezt majd szerintem kívül fogom, és akkor majd legközelebb egy rendes csatában fogom tudni megnézni. Most boldogban is jól láttam. Na, úgyhogy akkor ez a stream ez ennyi volt. Elkálisz voltam, és innen fogjuk majd folytatni a Horizont. Sziasztok!